Here to talk about the difference between a third and an M3 in feeling, in touch, in distance, in your brain. The distance between the first and the M3 or the first and the 3. The root, the first. The next thing going up to an M3 or going to a 3. M3 and 3 touching each other as neighbors, and this distance between a root and an M3 is 2 notes in between. 2 half steps in between though. Around them is 2 notes right here. A 3 around them, in between them, is 3 notes. It's a really silly thing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Threes and M3s are really big in the right hand guitar parts. 3s and M3s are really cool in the bass, but in walking, in moving, in bouncing, in boogieing to an M3 or a 3. But more than likely you'll be playing them in the left hand, broken 3s, in other words, from a 1 to a 3, boom, bing, 1 to 3, or 1 to M3, but in the left, that's in the left hand bass part, but in the right hand, you'll want to be playing them all kinds of different ways. Yes, broken, but solid. 3s are so happy, so open, so new sounding, so fresh sounding. Why minor thirds have that great darkness to them. What did you know minor third off of every single letter? If you put your thumb on every single letter, without even looking, do you know the minor that would be there? Is it a sharp or is it a letter to letter? Is it a letter to letter combination like here? Remember, I'm only going to go here. I'm not taking my thumb and putting them on the sharps. I'm just putting my thumb on the letter side of the keyboard. If you were looking at it upside down or straight side up or whatever, you'd see the lower side down here is the letter side, and then all up here would be the sharp side, the 3s and 2s, 3s and 2s, which we're really looking at first in order to find where you are down on the letter side. Those 3s and 2s are so important, you're sighting them, you don't even know, but you're actually looking at them first, and then you're looking at the letter side, right? Okay? But what combination between the letter and a sharp, or the letter and a letter, is an M3 or is a 3. 2 different things, M3 or 3. M3 has 2 notes in between. Anywhere you start, like if I start on this sharp right here, this F sharp, I have to go 2 notes in between before I get to an A to have a true M3. If I have 3 notes in between, look at those 3 notes in between, see those 3 half steps in between, those little, I have a true 3. 3 notes in between, we have a true 3. 4 notes in between, we have a true 4. And that's as far as I ever talk about going notes in between, because that's confusing enough in between notes. But it's really cool if you look at the oblique, like, oh, to have those 2 notes in between is getting an M3. To have those 3 notes in between is getting a 3. Guaranteed. So whatever note you start on, like if you start on this note right here, it happens to be G, then if you go to an A sharp, you've only gone an M3 because there's only 2 notes in between. But if you go all the way to a B, you've gone a full 3 because there's 3 notes in between. If you're playing it in one hand, you feel the difference between your first and your second finger. Oh, am I on an M3 or am I on a 3? That's what I'm talking about. You can feel it. It slides by a half step just close enough together. Yes, it is difficult. Why is it important? Because if you don't have to look at the keyboard to know whether you're doing an M3 or a 3, or any interval for that matter, I've always been talking about the 5. If you know any interval distance, what does it feel like? Then you don't have to literally look at the keyboard as long as you know where your 1 is in each hand. Where is your one? One note isn't one. Well, you can touch the 3s and the 2s and feel the in-betweens, B, C, B, C, E, F, E, Fs. B, C, B, C, E, F, E, F, B, C, B, C, E, F, E, F, B, C, B, C, E, F, E, F, B, C, B, C, E, F, E, F. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Something about, this is the most important stuff where you go from intervals and you jump from intervals to chords. That's true. We're building, like when you go from syllable to words in English language, you build words out of syllables. Well, we're doing the same thing now. We're taking intervals and we're taking another step beyond 2 letters. And we're going to go to 3 letters or 4 letters or 5 letters. And by that, we call it a chord. Not an interval, a chord. 3, 4, 5 things at one time. The first chord that I teach is called the power chord in relation to the guitar. Now watch this, I got this. Wait, I had it. I'm actually biting the wire. Hold on here. I gotta go down here. The guitar. The guitar neck. Now, I do not know how to play a guitar, but you know the principle. You press 2 or 3 or whatever things in a formation, and then you slide the neck over the frets, and you move up by half step, by half step, by half step. But your finger positions stay the same. They stay level on a level plane, although you can feel the frets, which is beautiful. And the guitar started all of music, so this is the greatest, greatest, greatest instrument in the world. So I always start with this instrument, but I reference this instrument because the fret, the fret, the fret, the fret action that I always talk about doesn't just move straight down the line like you hope it would if you're playing keys. Because if you were playing keys and you go straight down the line, fret by fret by fret by fret, and if you happen to be on an M3, sometimes an M3 goes to a sharp. Now I'm only going to start on all letters, so I'm not going to go chromatically. I'm not going to go fret to fret to fret to fret. I'm going to go, sometimes I'm going to go a whole step away, and sometimes only a half step away as my first note, because I'm using only letters as my starts. Because I want to try to trick my mind, because if just like going fret to fret to fret to fret on the guitar is kind of like easy. It is kind of easy, even though you're squiggling back and forth on the keyboard too. So you don't really want to do that. You want to trick your mind into a little bit of a challenge. So by doing that, you actually learn what it is that you're looking for in a picture if you're on an M3 or a 3 or a 5 or a 4 or a +4 or any of those intervals that we're talking about, to see them really quick, because they're going to become really important now, because they're going to build chords, or the words of music, the chords, the feeling of music, the chords. This is the coolest stuff of music, building the chords from the intervals. All that work of all those learning of all those intervals comes together just to build these great chords. So here we are trying to look at a chord, and that's 3 or more things, right? I always surround the chord by the octave. It's like bookends. Everyone, you know, when you see a lot of these books that start about chords and piano or keyboards, they have the little stacks of 3s, the little 3s here, the little 3s, little like clonk, 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 you know, which is nothing wrong with them. I mean, they're great chords. But for some reason, I never thought of it, even if you were building into 4s and stuff like that, I never really thought of it as really being equal to a sight that I discovered once I saw the octave. Once I meant the octave as my border and my maximum, I had to learn all the in-between notes, what they did, what they sounded like, what they felt like. If I was at the octave all the time, I had to learn what did that, if I put a 3 in between, what would it sound like with that octave around it? But another point, what would it look like? What would it look like? That's what it's all about. What would it feel like, and what would it look like? But especially surrounded with that octave. Not only just thinking about a 3, but if you had that octave always there, and again, you're only starting from the letters just to practice yourself, so you move up to the next letter, you got to go letter to letter in between to go to that 3 and an octave. But you go up to another letter, G, you once again have letter to letter. But look at this, you go to A, and you have to go all the way to C sharp to get a letter in between. 3 in between, because that is the test, right? It happened to work out when we were B to G. There was 3 in between. But when you go A, you go 1, 2, 3, all the way up to C. No, I have to have in between 3. So to get a true 3, it's to C sharp. So every time I press an A, I have to know I have to go to a sharp. Turns out the same thing happens with a B. You have to go to a D sharp. So here, in this case, you're going a letter to sharp, letter to sharp. From a letter, you're going to sharp. But you have to know that every single time that you ever know a B or an A, you have to go to a sharp as the 3 of your street, your major street.